This week on Pennsylvania Newsmakers, is Pennsylvania the most gerrymandered state in the country? We'll give you an update on efforts to redistrict Pennsylvania. Plus, when it comes time to furlough or fire teachers, do districts have the power to get rid of the right ones? We'll tell you about a new law and also break down some upcoming congressional races. That's with State Representative Steve Bloom. That's all ahead this week on Pennsylvania Newsmakers.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host.
Hello, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My name is Mike Straub, in for the good doctor, Terry Madonna. He's away this week, but not to worry, he'll be back next week. We are talking this week about redistricting Pennsylvania. It's kind of a now or never situation. We've got Gene Handley and Derek Smith from Fair Districts PA here to talk about that issue. Let's just jump into this right away, guys. Is Pennsylvania the most gerrymandered state there is?
Derek, you want to handle it?
Good morning, Mike. Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for being here.
Is it the most gerrymandered state in the country? We're near the top. We're normally switching places between three states, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and ourselves. So depending on who you ask and what metrics you're using, we're either the first, second, or third. Not a list that we really want to be towards the top.
Certainly not. If you look at the way the districts are drawn in Pennsylvania, what we're talking about is the idea of parties drawing the lines to benefit themselves. If you Google some of these districts, the 7th comes to mind almost immediately. It looks more like some sort of butterfly or strange design. What's the problem, Gene? What's wrong with the way that the districts are drawn right now?
Well, once again, thank you very much for having us. The problem with the way that the districts are drawn is that because of the data mining and the technology that's available, they can be so specific that they can draw people in or out of the districts, or they can basically draw whatever they want to benefit themselves. And if you take a look at the 7th that you mentioned, they call it Goofy Kicking Donald, if you look at it sometimes, and because of the cartoon characters. But it is a district that covers 5 different counties: Delaware, Chester, Montgomery, Berks, and Lancaster. And if you look at the representation, how do you represent 5 different districts when you're covering those 5 different districts with one person? Another thing about the way that they draw the districts, and just to give an example, in District 16,
Lancaster County.
Yes, Reading, Pennsylvania, one of the, if not the most rated one of the poorest cities in the country. They were able to, what you term crack, they put Reading, Pennsylvania in with Lancaster County and the horse country of Chester County. Now, when you take a representative, who are they going to look at? Are they going to look at the voters from Reading, Pennsylvania, or are they going to look at the horse country people or the farmers in Lancaster County? So, bottom line, to sum that all up, they can do whatever they choose to do that is more beneficial for them, and the lines that they draw become very convoluted at times to get to that purpose.
And this leads to an important point. As you say, they draw the lines. Who's drawing those lines, Derek?
Both parties are drawing these lines, and the leadership of both parties is drawing these lines after the census that's taken during reapportionment, which is where we decide geographical population shifts within districts, how they're going to be redrawn to stay within the Constitution of representation, both federal, your congressional districts, and state and Senate districts. Party leadership from both Democrats and Republicans are put on a commission to draw these and essentially have these sweetheart deals of predetermining, for the most part, who's going to win these districts. You almost have an election before the people have an opportunity to be polled at the ballot. What we've found is that this creates a very partisan situation where the party in power gets to draw the map to favor them for the next 10 years, and it's been equal opportunity offenders on both Democratic sides and Republican sides. There's supposed to be a chairperson that's decided upon by both parties. However, this person has never been decided on. Both parties can't find a mutual person that they see as appropriate, so the Supreme Court appoints that person. And that's based on the party affiliation of the majority in the court.
We're going to continue this discussion in a minute, talk about ways this can be fixed in the future, also why the practice could be called unconstitutional. That's ahead on Pennsylvania Newsmakers.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm Mike Straub, filling in for Terry Madonna. I hope you and your family are having a great Thanksgiving weekend. We're talking with Gene Handley and Derek Smith from Fair Districts, PA, about hopefully, in some minds, the efforts to change the way Pennsylvania is redistricted. We should say, as we're talking about the current bills, they have to be approved by the legislature and signed by the governor, so there is some oversight there. But there's a question of constitutionality with how this even lays out. If you read the state constitution, it's written right in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, on this one, but it says you cannot draw districts outside of county lines unless absolutely necessary. What's the language there?
Correct, Mike. The Constitution has it very well specified that the districts need to be drawn in a certain way, and right now, I'm not going too far out on an edge because we're going to hear pretty soon if this is in fact true. All of our districts are currently illegal.
Every single one of them.
All
right,
of them
because it says
are
you can't
illegal.
cross county lines, or unless you
federal and state districts are currently illegal.
Right.
So we're being represented in illegal maps, which is just kind of a problem in itself. Right. These boundaries are not supposed to violate county lines, municipal lines, as boroughs, townships. You're not supposed to be able to break up an incorporated location. That way you can have some kind of consistency of representation for a particular area.
And the state Supreme Court is looking into that as we speak.
Correct.
Right. So what is the answer, Gene? Where do we go from here? What can be done? There are some bills in play, right?
There are several bills in play right now. We at Fair Districts are supporting SB 22 and HB 722, which are mirror image bills. One of them has to get past the legislative sessions two times. Right. And then a referendum. We feel that particular bill is the most inclusive, and it is the one that includes an independent citizens commission. There is one other one, but it is less restrictive on the people that can apply. So that bill is something that if they establish an independent citizens commission, those people will be the ones, it's an 11-member commission, and those people will be the ones that will research and draw the lines.
I think it's an important point as we wrapped up this discussion. This is not about one party or the other. As I've gotten to know some folks in your group, you come from both sides of the political spectrum. This is not about, and gerrymandering is not a practice by one party or the other. If you go to Maryland, the districts heavily favor the Democratic Party.
Correct.
So it's important to point out that the efforts by Fair Districts and other groups like this, they're not pushing to benefit one part or the other. This is a really bipartisan sort of fairness issue to you guys.
Correct. We've, just because we're a state organization and we're working with everybody, it's fascinating to hear stories of disaffected Democrats in Erie and how the Republican leadership doesn't necessarily want to hear them because we're a grassroots effort in helping people connect with their legislators about this legislation. Disaffected Democrats in areas are having trouble speaking to Republicans, and then Republicans in Allegheny and Philadelphia are having trouble communicating with their Democratic leadership. And even when Democrats go to appeal to Democrats, we've been hearing stories in Philadelphia, Democratic Party leadership there feels that they may be some kind of a Republican conspiracy. But both parties have been doing this for decades now. And
so the message is contact your legislator to support one of these bills as we wrap this up, guys?
Yes, it is. It's letters, phone calls, emails. Contact your state representative and your state senator. No good to do your congressman because they're not really involved in this specific issue.
The 3 basic points that we tell constituents is that tell your legislator that you would like them to encourage their colleagues to have a hearing in the respective committees, which is the state, Senate, and House state government committees. We want hearings, we want committee votes, and we'd eventually like to have a vote on the floor of the Senate. This is a rare opportunity for the voters to take a vote on a government reform at the ballot box. And we don't want our legislators to rob us of that opportunity. That's a very rare opportunity.
And it's time critical. I mean, this is absolutely time critical. This needs to be done by July 1st of 2018.
Thank you guys both for being here very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking some time with us this weekend on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Well, looking ahead, guys, we'll be joined by Representative Steve Bloom talking about some changes in the school code and also his jump into the race for U.S. Congress. We'll be back after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Mike Straub in once again for Dr. Terry Madonna on this Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. And now we're joined by State Representative Stephen Bloom, Republican from the 199th District, Cumberland County. Happy Thanksgiving weekend to you. Thanks for being here.
Same to you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Hey, happy to be here. Honored that you'd spend some time with us here. So, looking at the school code, there are some changes in the school code, some language in there that you've worked on for many years, some changes to how teachers can be furloughed, the rules regarding that. Help folks understand what the issue was and why you were moving forward on this.
A lot of times in Pennsylvania, the laws we have on the books don't really make a lot of sense. They're not common sense ideas. So you would think we would always want to make sure we have the best qualified teachers in the classrooms with our kids. But there were archaic laws on the books in Pennsylvania, been for many decades, that said if a school was ever going to reduce staffing, that rather than being able to look at the teacher evaluation system, which has been in place for many years and grades every teacher every year, rather than saying, well, we could, if we had to eliminate any teachers, at least they should be the lowest performing teachers. Instead, the law said that you had to do it, school district had to do it by strict blind seniority. So the newest teacher would be out, no matter how good he or she was, no matter how well qualified, how excellent that teacher was. And so I introduced a bill 3 years ago called the Protecting Excellent Teachers Act, which just did the common sense thing that I think most everyone agrees with, especially parents and especially anyone who cares about the quality of education. If there's going to be a furlough, if there's going to be a layoff, let's look at a failing teacher before we look at a distinguished or proficient teacher, so we make sure that those distinguished and proficient teachers stay in the classroom where they belong with our kids. So I introduced the bill, we got it through the House, through the Senate, went to Governor Wolf's desk last year, and after a few days of considering the bill, he decided to veto it. So I started all over again this session, introduced the bill again. This time we got it introduced, and then it ultimately became part of the Omnibus School Code bill that is one of the bills that goes along with the budget each year. And so this time when it reached the governor's desk, it wasn't just by itself. It had some other important measures with it that the governor didn't necessarily want to veto. So he took the, for him, not unprecedented step, but for other governors, a very rare step. Instead of signing the bill into law or vetoing it, he did nothing. And after 10 days, the bill became law, which is what happens to a bill when the governor doesn't act. And so now, finally, the Protecting Excellent Teachers Act is the law of Pennsylvania. Big win for our kids, big win for our teachers, our good teachers, because good teachers supported this bill from day one. Good teachers obviously care about kids and they want to make sure that the best teachers stay in the classroom.
There was something also interesting in that, and not just about how the teachers are measured, but how districts can decide whether they need to make these sort of changes. Right now, you can reduce your teachers for different reasons now, or your staff, I should say, correct?
Right, and the reasons now are very limited, and often what it requires under the old law is that rather than actually furlough a teacher, a failing teacher, Instead, they eliminated whole programs. You would lose the art program, the music program, the languages program, something important to parents and kids. And that's the only alternative a school district had. Now, under the new law, they can actually go through the steps to identify, which are, again, the evaluations already take place. They've been done every year since 2012. And most teachers do great, by the way. Most teachers are distinguished or proficient. There's only about 2% of the teachers that fall into the needs improvement and failing categories. But now, finally, rather than have to wipe out an entire program or get rid of an excellent new teacher, the first teacher that would be furloughed would be one that is failing.
And it's important. It's important to point that out. We're talking about the worst performing teachers. I mean, and the thing is, not to make light of any of this, we can all relate to that in your own office. If somebody's the one who's the lowest performing one in your office, suddenly they find a way to not longer be part of your company anymore. It tends to happen that way in any line of work. So the lowest performing teachers are the ones who are really on the chopping block. Now, I shouldn't even put it that way. The ones who would be the first to go.
Correct. And we're talking, again, about a tiny percentage.
Yep.
Less than 2% of all teachers are failing. And the way that the criteria are set up, it's very fair, and most teachers are doing fine.
Right.
And that's good. That's actually good news for public education in Pennsylvania. Most teachers are great. They're either proficient or distinguished.
Yep.
And so those are the teachers we want to keep in the classroom with our kids.
Fantastic. Okay, shifting gears slightly to some developments right now in the State House. If you've been following what's been going on in the Capitol, you think that might be slowing down for the holiday season. Not so much. Suddenly the shale tax is back on the table. It's back being talked about, and not just behind closed doors, on the House floor. It's the Gene DiGirolamo bill, 3.2% severance tax on top of the existing impact fee. You don't have to dig too deep in your voting record to know where you stand. Tell us why you stand opposed to such a severance tax.
Well, you mentioned the impact fee, and that's the biggest thing. Pennsylvania, the energy industry already pays double taxes. They pay the normal business taxes in Pennsylvania, which are some of the highest in the country, and they pay the drilling impact fee, which is essentially a tax. And it's comparable to the rates that are in effect for other states that have drilling who have severance taxes. So they're paying one tax, they're paying a second tax. The idea of now adding another tax that just happens to be called a severance tax on top of the impact fee will literally triple tax an industry that's growing in Pennsylvania, that has been producing jobs, generating tax revenue, investing in our state, the thing that we want companies to come and do, and at the same time helping to provide for American energy independence so we're not dependent on foreign sources for oil and gas and energy. And yet, some of the legislators in Pennsylvania want to punish this industry with a third tax, triple taxation, when most times we would be happy to welcome a growing job-creating industry into Pennsylvania.
And for the sake of argument, we're almost out of time here. Isn't the impact fee, though, wasn't it billed as a way the industry is supposed to pay for the impact, the big trucks, all the stuff that's arriving in small communities? Shouldn't the impact fee be separate from a severance tax? I mean, the way it was billed, isn't it supposed to be there to fix bridges and roads in a state that already has bad bridges and roads? Is it?
And that's what it does, and that's what it's designed to do. But you can't add a third tax to make more revenue come down to Harrisburg to be spent as part of the general fund when we're already taxing these companies to do those things, which are certainly appropriate to build up local infrastructure in the areas where the drilling's taking place and around other counties. I mean, even counties like Cumberland County, Lancaster County that don't have drilling get a share of the impact fee revenue.
True, that's true.
We replace bridges in my county every year with funds that come directly from the impact fee.
So Pennsylvanians should feel comfortable that industry is paying its fair share.
Absolutely.
As a term that gets thrown around a lot.
It's highly competitive with other states right now. If we raise it, not only are we going to punish them with a third tax, we're going to drive them to other states like Ohio and West Virginia where the rates are much lower and they can get a better return on their investment. They simply won't stay in Pennsylvania. We'll lose those good jobs.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. Shifting gears, when we come back on Newsmakers, we'll introduce you to a new job title for the representative. A candidate once again running for U.S. Congress. We'll dig into that race when Newsmakers continues.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Mike Straub filling in for Terry Madonna this week and continue to be joined by State Representative Steve Bloom, 199th District, mostly Cumberland County. So a change of job title, though, is what you're after, jumping into the race for U.S. Congress to replace Lou Barletta. That's a big crowd there. It's a wild time to think about joining in the fray in Washington. What draws your attention? What makes you want to make this leap?
I mean, like so many people, I was excited when we finally elected a Republican president. We have a Republican Senate, a Republican House. I thought this is finally the time we're going to get the conservative agenda that we've all been fighting for decades done. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And now I see the Congress literally not being willing, not having the courage. It's a cowardly Congress. They're not willing to enact the very things that we all voted for last year. So whether it's repealing Obamacare, whether it's protecting our borders, securing our borders, whether it's making sure that the deals we have with foreign nations are fair and that American jobs aren't being killed by unfair practices in other countries, whether it's strengthening our military, defending the Second Amendment, protecting unborn innocent life. These are things that we all fought for, we all thought were going to happen, and now we see this Congress that's not able to do anything. They're unwilling or afraid to take the steps that we need them to take. And I want to go to Congress to defend those values, to fight for those things that we all believe in as conservatives. I've been in the State House now for 7 years. I've been fighting high taxes. I've been fighting for those things. I have a 100% pro-life voting record, A rating from the NRA. These are things I care about deeply. And now that Congressman Barletta, who I highly respect, is going to be moving on to run for U.S. Senate, I felt I had a duty to put my name into consideration for the voters in this district.
You talked about the jobs and the losing jobs overseas and issues like that. When I think about the 11th district, which is, as we mentioned in our earlier part of the show, stretches a huge amount of area, but here where we live in the Susquehanna Valley, major industrial corridors, you think about that area of 81 in particular. What are the challenges you think specifically facing the jobs in this district and things you'll fight for if given the opportunity?
I mean, we have, for example, in the 11th Congressional District, there's steel manufacturing. We have companies in Steelton, High Spire, that area that are making American steel, and that's happening throughout the district. We have growing jobs in the area of distribution and logistics all across the 11th district. Agriculture is a huge industry across the entire 11th district. These are things that are American job-creating industries, but if we're not careful, we can lose them. There are already foreign governments subsidizing their steel exports to the United States that make it very difficult for American manufacturers who want to play fair and by the rules to keep growing and growing jobs. We're seeing agricultural competition from countries like China that are subsidizing industries. I mean, it sounds crazy sometimes to even consider, but apple juice, products like that, subsidized by the Chinese government, are making it difficult for American agriculture to compete. So we got to make sure we have fair arrangements to protect those jobs. And I'm all for free trade, but it should be fair free trade. We've
got less than a minute, so why are you the right guy? It's a crowded field there. I'm not even trying to run through the names. You get about 30 seconds. I'll give it to you.
People already know me. I'm a known quantity. I've been in the State House for 7 years. I've never voted for a tax increase. I've fought high spending, fought high taxes, defended the Second Amendment, defended unborn innocent human life, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you,
Best
Mike.
of luck out there. Thanks for joining us on Newsmakers. Thanks for spending a portion of your weekend with us here at Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm Mike Straub, and don't you worry, the good Dr. Terry Madonna will be right back in this seat next week. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend.